Level 2 kennel enrichment program activities are referred to as individualized approach activities. So this is really more than being a rank and file dog walker and taking dogs out in quick succession. If you like to spend more time with each of the dogs and getting to know them, then this is really the type of program that is for you. If you are interested in an individualized approach with the dog, one of the items that we like to stress is to stay with your dog. So for example, if you remove your dog from the kennel and then you go to the outside runs, then you are breaking the monotony of the dog having the experience of taken from their kennel, taken down the hall, put into an outdoor run, and then having the gate slam behind them. Instead, you're going to hang around and give them human interaction. I like to encourage volunteers who are staying with their dogs in the outdoor runs to manage yard stress appropriately. What that means is that if it's really hot in the summertime and it's 110 degrees out, you wouldn't leave your dogs outside unmanaged. You wouldn't leave them out there for 10 or 30 minutes at a shot. Similarly, if it's below freezing temperatures, then you wouldn't leave your dog outside for too long and you wouldn't leave them out there unsupervised because it's simply not safe in these conditions. Yard stress can be the same thing. So let's say you've taken your favorite dog, Chip, out to the yard and Chip's having a good time. But there's a dog in the kennel next to Chip and that dog is not having a good time because he's very stressed. And so this dog is running all four corners of the fence and barking at you and Chip and everybody else that's in the outdoor kennel area. This can actually elicit a negative response out of your dog Chip that you otherwise may have not seen before. And similarly, if there are other dogs in the outdoor runs that are neighbors, then they may be adversely affected by the one dog who is too stressed outside. It is not to say that the dog that is too stressed outside can't be worked with. However, the dog that is stressed outside is creating conditions that are unnecessarily stressful for the other dogs that are out there. Similarly, the dog that is stressed out in the outside environment and overstressed in the outside environment needs to be removed from that environment as soon as possible or worked with in a more positive fashion to make it less stressful for them. It is simply not safe and does not promote positive mental activity. It is the same thing as not leaving the dog in extreme temperatures. You want the dog to be in a safe, positive environment. The next point of level 2 individualized approach activities is using of the real room for de-stressing or for training. Indianapolis Animal Care and Control has 2 real room settings that we are allowed to use if they are not occupied. These rooms include a couch, a soft light setting, and a source of music to play calming and relaxing music. So this is somewhere you can take the dog that has less distracting stimuli. For some dogs, they just want to relax because they haven't slept because the kennel is too stressful. So they will want to sleep on the floor, sleep on the couch. Some dogs want affection, some dogs are not inclined to affection, some dogs will want to play with toys. Some dogs, if they are so inclined, can be worked with obedience methods during these times. So for example, if you have found that you have the dog that is too stressed out in the outdoor setting, then you may choose to bring the dog to the real room, try to engage the dog with some positive training techniques, and then if you feel as if you've made a bond with the dog, then you can continue your training techniques all the way down the hall and right back out the door, and hopefully you can continue to engage that dog positively in the outside setting where he can work through the ability to deal with these distractions that are otherwise stressful. Some of the items that you can do with dogs as far as individual approach activities is working with their leashing and walking abilities. You can also do basic obedience, which would be sit, down, stay, and proper play with toys. We always emphasize positive training methods only. The fact of the matter is that with kennel dogs, you don't know where the dog has come from. You don't know if they've had a negative experience with negative reinforcement in their past. And on the chance that a dog has had negative experience with negative reinforcement in the past, you don't want to break your ability to form a solid bond with that dog that could be positive. So to touch base back on the benefit of leash and walk work, some dogs come to the shelter and they just simply don't have an experience of being walked on a leash, or they don't like having a collar put on them. And for some dogs, this is a real problem. I've had many young shepherds come across my path who have no idea how to walk on a leash. Frankly, an 80 or 100-pound dog that pulls terribly on a leash has very few chances of getting adopted compared to a dog that does walk well on a leash. Some dogs don't like being collared, or they think it's a game because they have not had any other experience. This is when I like to use my handy dandy rope toy. So if a dog likes this, then I am giving this as a positive thing for them to chew on. So when I've approached this dog and I have their collar and they want to chew on the collar, they want to chew on the leash, I offered this up and I put this in their mouth, and this is something that they are permitted to chew on. 9 times out of 10, this works because I've given them something positive to do, and then I can complete my task of putting a collar on them and putting a leash on them. And that also reinforces the value of doing basic obedience with a dog, such as sit, off, down, and playing properly with toys. If a dog is exhibiting a behavior that is not valued or is not something that you want to see in them, then you really need to give them a positive replacement for that activity. So for dogs that are out of control, or they are jumpy or mouthy, or they just simply don't know what to do with themselves, which is very frequent with younger dogs, then if you can try to build this bond with them through things like sit, down, and stay, then you are mentally engaging them. They are giving them mental stimuli, and hopefully they will engage in that and appreciate that and be able to have a positive outlet for their energy. There will be times when you are faced with dogs who will complicate your day with being jumpy or being mouthy or wanting to play tug of war with you. We want all of our volunteers to be safe and operate in a safe manner. So please do not put yourself in a dangerous situation, and be aware of the surroundings that you have. If you have a dog that is jumping on you excessively, then you need to turn around and ignore this behavior and become tight. Make sure you don't have your hands out for the dog to bite on or chew on your clothing in any extra fashion that may appeal to them. If this doesn't work in a timely fashion, then you need to exit the kennel. Sometimes dogs simply become too aroused and they need time to decompress from the stressor. Frequently, dogs are described as jumpy and mouthy in the same phrase, and they're not necessarily always connected to one another. So a dog may be jumpy and not mouthy, and a dog may be mouthy and not necessarily jumpy. If you have a dog that is mouthy, which means they are putting their teeth on you, they are nipping at your clothes, they are trying to teeth you and engage you in a specific fashion, then they need to be handled in a specific fashion. Typically, this means the dog is young and unsocialized, and they don't know what to do with themselves. When dogs communicate with each other via play, they put their mouths on each other all the time. There is certainly a permissible level of a dog approaching a human with their mouth, but then there's a level that is not permissible. So when we get our kisses and our nudges from our dogs and our hands or our faces, that is an acceptable level. If you have a dog that is mouthy towards you, then the first tip that I can give is to simply respond with a yipe. That means you imitate the sound of a dog by going, yipe! If you make it high-pitched and intense, this should sufficiently mimic the sound of a dog yiping. So if you imagine when puppies play with each other, they're playing, they're testing out with each other what they can do, how far they can go until it pushes the other dog to a state that they're not comfortable with. This is how they learn. So if you respond in kind with the dog, most of the times they will respond appropriately. However, this is not a catch-all case. This is not a magic wand. So if you find that this method does not work repeatedly, then you can also try to substitute with a toy, as I had suggested earlier with dogs that want to play tug-of-war with the leash or with their collar. And you teach the dog what is appropriate for them to put their mouth on. And hopefully one of these two methods will work in averting the behavior that you don't want from that dog. So what if you have a dog that wants to play tug of war with you? I do not advise playing tug of war with dogs. Dogs like to play tug. I watch my dogs play tug all the time. It's fun for them. However, if you don't know a dog, and especially if you don't have an off command for that dog, then you run the risk of overstimulating a dog. And if the dog gets over aroused and you don't have an off command, or you don't know their arousal level or what they're like when they become aroused, you could be put in a dangerous situation. When I give dogs their soft toys, I literally give it to them for them to play with. I don't overstimulate them by playing tug with them. That's something that I simply do out of safety.